And I was just incredibly lost, and I didn't feel like there was anyone I could talk to about it at that time, or like no one understood. Hello, and welcome to Into the ManCave, where we take a deep dive into the minds of men. I'm Seb, and on this episode, we'll be talking about what is Into the ManCave, why I wanted to start this, and why it's important, and we'll be talking about the gold standard of masculinity. So first of all, what is Into the ManCave? Into the ManCave is all about empowering each other to manage the man cave of our minds. And when you think about the man cave, it's that place in our minds that we retreat to when navigating those bigger challenges, or I like to call them boulders, which naturally arise in our lives. Now, our man caves can be a real place of retreat and empowerment, and where we get strength from. For me, I typically think about it as when I'm dealing with bigger challenges, I might retreat into that man cave and think, okay, what's the best way to approach this situation? How can I deal with it? This is something that's unfamiliar to me. I need to be a bit more considered in terms of what my approach is. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's something we all naturally do on different occasions. And again, that can really help us to be able to navigate that situation in the best way. The real issue here is when it's a boulder, when it's too large of a challenge for us to deal with solo, that man cave can almost become incredibly isolating. It can become incredibly challenging. And actually, even though we know deep down that we'd be much better off speaking to someone who's been through that situation before, whether that be friends or family or someone in our network, we still don't do that though, because we think of the judgment that could be associated with that, and almost about whether we're failing because we're asking for help in those situations. Because of the gold standard of masculinity that we've been socialized with, that we've grown up with, we almost associate that asking for support with a real shame and defeat, almost as if we've failed to live up to that gold standard of masculinity, or we failed to be what would be successful men. This is one of the big reasons I really wanted to set up Into the Man Cave. Like us all, I've had those personal challenges, and it took me a long time to be comfortable with the fact that actually it's okay to share your experiences with others, to share those vulnerabilities, to share those challenges that you've been through, and actually just how incredibly empowering that is when you hear from someone else who's been through what you've been through or what you're going through and has come out the other side. Or actually to be able to share my experience with someone else who's going through what I went through previously, knowing how horrible it is and how tough it is and how isolating it is, and all the different feelings that go along with even dealing with a major challenge in your man cave. I've been really fortunate to have great friends and family who have been really, really supportive. And certainly as I've matured and as we've all kind of grown together, we've had a lot more open conversations, not being afraid to share with each other our vulnerabilities and the challenges that we go through, and particularly with my male friends as well, who are around the same age. This is the thing, like we're all going through the same things. And even those, older who have been through what we've been through already, or those younger who are going to go through what we go through, we really need to have these conversations. We really need to support each other, because it can make a huge difference. And as part of Into the Man Cave, I really want to build that community. I'll call it a tribe. But essentially it's a community dedicated to a healthy gold standard of masculinity, one which isn't detrimental to our mental health. This is hugely important. Some of the key reasons why this is important are pleasantly now coming even more and more to the forefront of the media. I'm sure you'll all be aware of different charity initiatives that are being set up now around men's mental health and encouraging us to talk, which is hugely important. And some of the key statistics at the forefront of that I looked into as part of the UK charity Men's Health Forum. One of them that you'll probably be most aware of is the fact that suicide is the largest cause of death for men under 50. Men are also 3 times more likely than women to become dependent on alcohol or drugs, which highlights some of the maladaptive strategies that we use as coping mechanisms to deal with these challenges that we go through. Even escapist behavior such as really throwing ourselves into our work, almost throwing ourselves into any kind of distraction that we can to be able to deal with what's going on in our man caves. Add to this, nearly 3/4 of adults who go missing are men, and that also, which won't surprise you, men are less likely to access psychological therapies than women, and only 36% of NHS talking therapy referrals are actually for men. So this really highlights just kind of where we're at and the need for spaces like this for us to be able to come together and share the challenges that we're going through. Finally, another couple really important statistics that I came upon through doing some research into a report called Get It Off Your Chest from the UK charity Mind is that 43% of us regularly admit to feeling worried or low, and 10% of us admit to regularly having suicidal thoughts when worried or low. This really highlights, again, just how important it is for us to have these conversations and have that place where we can all come together as guys who have that shared experiences and those shared challenges to kind of share with each other and to empower each other. This is so relevant now because the truth is, and again, this probably won't be something that surprises you, is that men, by a variety of measures, and this was taken from another Men's Health Forum report called Untold Problems, which was a review into the essential issues in the mental health of men and boys. They found that by a variety of measures, men appear to have narrower range of active social and family relationships than women. And not only do we have a narrower range, the relationships that we do have in general were a lot less intimate. Now, that wasn't something that surprised me, and I'm sure it wouldn't have surprised many of you, because typically when we talk about doing things as guys, it's about activities, it's about doing things together, and sometimes that can be a stepping stone to having those conversations and opening up. But women in general are a lot more comfortable in sharing their emotions and sharing their feelings. And again, this is a huge part of how we've been socialized. And because of that, there are key distinct differences between what we need from a mental health perspective versus what women need, which is naturally just associated with the differences in our lived experiences. This podcast is going to be our platform for truly authentic conversations where we're able to come together and share our experiences in a safe space. We want to remove that need for bravado, that need to pretend that everything is going well, that you're on top of your game, that you're in control of everything, you don't ever face any challenges, and that everything's all right all the time. We want to trade that for real openness and honesty, because only then can we truly achieve that healthy gold standard of masculinity that we all desire, which isn't to the detriment of our mental health. So in saying that, the tribe that we're bringing together, there are a few key things that they are going to embody, and there are a few key things that we are going to make sure are at the forefront of this space on the podcast. First thing we're going to do is we're going to empower each other. As I've touched on, by sharing our experiences, these not only empower each other in terms of understanding how to navigate them, but also it normalizes everything that we go through. And I think for me, that was one of the things that I really struggled with when I was facing my challenges, because it appeared that at the time that everyone else was just moving forward and everyone else was dealing with everything seamlessly. And at that time, I really felt lost. I felt like I wasn't living up to what a man should be, and everyone else was doing absolutely fine, because that's what I thought, because we weren't having these conversations, and from the outside it really appeared that way. And with maturity, of course, I've learned that actually we all have our challenges, and many of us, if not all of us, are at times are masking those. But it just makes it so important that actually we put them on the table and we come together and we share these challenges that we're currently going through, and the things that we have been through, because they really do help to strengthen each other, and shows that relatability that we all have. We want to create that culture of peer support on Into the Man Cave. And alongside those empowering shared experiences, we'll also be looking to bring experts onto the podcast. Experts on those key topics which challenge us the most. People who can help us to take a step back and help us to understand how to manage our man caves in terms of dealing with those, and have done the research and the evidence, and can give us those tips and those strategies in terms of how to move forward successfully. Another quality that our tribe will have is empathy. And empathy is a really huge one, because the thought of not having empathy is usually one of the things that stops us from actually sharing our experiences with each other. But the fantastic thing about our tribe in this space is that everyone coming into it will be understanding that every man has a different lived experiences. We're all coming from different places. We all have different personalities. And every man's thoughts and feelings on any situation or any struggle that they're going through, they're all valid. So it's not about me saying, or anyone else saying that, oh, that's the wrong way to do that. This is how you should do that. Why are you thinking that way? Or being judgmental in any way. It's simply about listening and understanding where each other are coming from, and not being judgmental, and being supportive of each other's journeys. And finally, we're here to provide a space that's really open-minded. I'm certainly no expert in this area at all. I started this podcast because I want to learn. I want to learn more about why I think the way I think, and learn how to deal with the challenges I have in my man cave more effectively, and manage my man cave more effectively, and just change my mindset and be the best version of myself, and find that healthy gold standard masculinity. So I'm very much on that journey. If you tune into this podcast, then you'll also be someone else who's really interested in that journey as well. And this will be very much something that we're doing together. I certainly don't have all the answers. As mentioned, very much kind of learning as I go. But the key thing on this podcast is we'll be hearing from a range of men with different experiences, and experts, again, who can support us on how to manage our man caves more effectively, and will certainly be open to those experiences and the opinions and the research that those experts bring as well. As mentioned earlier, we're building a tribe dedicated to a healthy gold standard of masculinity. Because the truth is, we all grow up and judge ourselves by a gold standard. There was a recent report released by the Samaritans called Try to See It My Way, in which they did a study of suicide risk amongst men in their mid-years. And it suggested that many men, especially working class men, we compare ourselves against that masculine gold standard, which comprises of power, control, and invincibility. And when we're not meeting this standard, we feel a real sense of shame and defeat. A lot of that comes down to how we're socialized. You know, I'm sure you'll be able to relate that we're socialized to hide those vulnerabilities that we have. There's common sayings when you're growing up, and this might ring true in your ears as well, of sayings such as "big boys don't cry" is quite a common one, and that almost communicates to us that no, you're not allowed to do this. This is not what you're supposed to do. If you do this, then you're not a real boy, or you're not becoming a real man if you do this. And with sayings like that, it just makes us even furthermore move away from that emotional sensitivity and connection and making those things, and more towards valuing real toughness or apparent toughness and stoicism to people. That shame, and a big part of where that shame comes from, and this is something that I read in the Effective Delivery in Male Mental Health report written by the Men's Health Forum, is that shame is associated with our inability to live up to what we feel are those expectations of that gold standard of masculinity. It often compels us to hide things, and that really kind of brings us back nicely to the man cave, and when that becomes a trap, or when we're dealing with something and we don't know how to deal with it, so we kind of pretend that everything's going fine. And definitely something that we do, as noted in this report as well, was around how we can frequently exaggerate our successes to avoid losing face to friends and family, because to us, and generally how we've been socialized, looking the part is more important than actually being the part, in terms of how you present yourself. And it's a lot about ego, it's a lot about status. So we'd rather do that to not lose face and make sure we're not depleting others' views of what our masculine standing is. Another interesting statistic I read from a report from the UK charity Mind is that when they asked men what are some of the reasons that would stop them from seeking for help or seeking for support, the top reason that we gave is embarrassment. 28% of men said embarrassment. In the male mental health reports as well, we also said one of the things that stops us kind of opening up and asking for support or being able to be vulnerable is our expectation that being masculine means being the person that everybody else can go to. So the person that other people look to for support, meaning that actually we can't do that ourselves because we have to be strong for others. There's also a real stigma associated with men being able to communicate that we're having mental health challenges, or that we need support, or that we don't have it all together, because we have the concern, and this again was found in the research from the Men's Mental Health Forum, that men are more concerned than women in terms of appearing capable or appearing in control, and that actually showing emotional distress will be seen as a sign of weakness. And still taking a pride as well in, and I think this is something that we have in society today, and it's incredibly detrimental to us, that there's a pride in kind of your scars from battle, in terms of what those wounds are that you have. And that's a real sign of masculinity, a sign of strength, and it's almost become a key practice for us as well. Reading these reports from the Men's Mental Health Forum and Mind really inspired me to write a blog actually on the Into the Man Cave website called The Need for a New Gold Standard, which is available on intothemancave.com. And it really made me reflect on my own views of what the gold standard of masculinity are, and how that really changed through the years. I think it's very natural for all of us. Our first role models, almost, in terms of what masculinity is, would be those in our family. So maybe our dad or our brothers or uncles, or any male role models that we have around us. And for me, when I thought of what masculinity is as a child, it was all about athletic, being athletic, having that physical prowess was a big thing. My dad was someone who was really into sport as well. Genetically, I also was quite naturally athletic, and there was a huge prize placed on that, particularly in school, in terms of around sport and competing. And that was definitely something that I placed high as showing that, okay, I'm really strong. I'm on my way to being a man because I'm athletic. Another thing when I was young around what I thought masculinity was girls. I thought that, girls being interested in you, or being able to speak to girls confidently, or girls liking you was a big highlight of what masculinity was. And I think a lot of that just comes through what we see in the media and what you kind of grow up with. And I think even growing up with things such as like Disney movies, like if you think of a Disney movie even, there's this own kind of, they're typically like coming of age stories, and they have clear character arcs most of the time, where you have the main character, a challenge arises that they have to kind of deal with and overcome, to be who they're truly meant to be, or to find their purpose, to find their place, to find their destiny, whatever the case it could be. But certainly when I was growing up, across all Disney movies, and it might even still be the case now, there was also always if the lead character was male, then there'd be a female lead as well, who they would have a kind of a romance or a liking to each other, and vice versa. And even I just think of from that, it just made you think, oh, okay, this is something that I should want. This is something that I should want to feel. So it's very interesting, even in like your childhood shows, what's placed on like love and feelings and romance, and what you're supposed to like and what you're supposed to be interested in growing up. Another big thing for me, and I think this also came through from, again, the male role models I had, and it doesn't just go to them, it's also how they were raised and the generations before us as well. Not asking for help was definitely a big thing within that. The feeling that you need to have all the answers yourself as a boy, or if you want to show that you're becoming a man, you need to figure things out yourself. And that's definitely something that I took on from a young age. I particularly found it really challenging when transitioning from school at the age of 16 into my next steps of education, or knowing what I wanted to do. I just recall that up until that age, life was very easy. It was, you go, like everything's right in front of you, isn't it? Like you go to school because that's what you're just meant to do. All your subjects are pretty much chosen for you. You turn up, you know exactly what you're meant to do, and you kind of just go with the flow. It's very set, it's very structured for you. I really struggled with that change at 16, when all of a sudden it was thrown to myself, what are you interested in? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What does your future look like? And to be honest, I just didn't have any of those answers. And then there was also that new responsibility of being independent, of planning, of knowing when you're going to study, when you're going to revise, how are you going to spend your time? And there was that need to be more independent and more in control. And it was just something I really struggled with at that age. And it seemed like all of my friends were just flying through, and they were really settled in their courses and really happy in them. And I was just incredibly lost. And I didn't feel like there was anyone I could talk to about at that time, or like no one understood. So I just kind of kept it to myself and tried to figure out myself. It was a real boulder for me. And I just remember how isolating that was to deal with. And then ultimately, because I was so I was so lost, and that was so challenging. I ultimately ended up failing completely in terms of the courses that I was taking. So the first course I took from the age of 16 going into college, I quit within 3 months because I felt like I couldn't manage the work, or I didn't know how to navigate it. I then, spent a period of around 6 months out of any form of education or training or employment or anything, and end up going back to my old school because I thought, okay, this is a place that I know, this is a place where I'm comfortable. Maybe I'll be able to figure it out if I go here. But I found it just as challenging, and I really struggled to kind of find my place. And through all of these things happening, I just felt that I didn't know who to speak to. I didn't know if anyone got it, because it seemed like everyone else was just so clear in what they wanted to do and in their subjects, and the fact that they were going to university, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And that led to me ultimately failing in terms of my A levels, completely failing, getting absolutely no qualifications whatsoever, which really hit me so deeply, and that's probably the biggest time I felt like the most shame ever, and I'd really failed. And I remember at that moment actually feeling like, oh, it was almost like I failed at life now, that I can't go anywhere from here. I've missed my opportunity. All my friends are moving forward. They're all going to university. They're all going past me, and I just can't keep up. And I was like, what am I going to do now? And at that time, I didn't feel, because I couldn't communicate to those around me how I was feeling, and actually the challenges and struggles I had, they didn't understand it as well, and they didn't really know how to support me through it. And I just stayed in my man cave. I just was dealing with those boulders by myself, not knowing what I wanted to do, not having that belief anymore, not having that self-esteem to know what I wanted to do. And it was incredibly challenging, and it led to me going into different things which weren't for me, and perhaps taking the wrong advice at times, and just not knowing where to turn. And it was incredibly challenging. I was very, very fortunate that at that time I had a mentor come into my life who really supported me and helped me to believe in myself more, and helped me to understand who I was. But looking back, that only came from me sharing my experience and opening up in terms of what I was finding challenging. And that mentor was then able to actually rebuild my motivation, rebuild my self-esteem, rebuild my faith in myself, through actually helping me to see what I was really good at, and helping me to see that there was another way forward. So I needed that person to help me to get past that boulder and really get out of my man cave, and know how to deal with it, and to move forward and move past all of that. So yeah, up until the age of 20, I'd say, in my teens certainly, it was a big period of challenge and a big transition between my late teens and my early 20s. From my 20s to my early 20s to my mid 20s, the focus again around masculinity was, again, it was largely around girls, to be honest. And again, it's just because that's just what we were just presented. That's what it felt like it was in terms of doing your 20s well. It was about going out. It was about how much girls can you get interest from. It was about drinking. It was about getting attention. It was about doing what all your friends do. And again, that was a real period of me, I think, of self-discovery, and me understanding what I like, what I don't like, and understanding that actually towards the end of my 20s, this isn't really who I am, or this isn't really what I want to be. And actually, I don't need to compete in this way, or this is not a healthy gold standard. This is not the gold standard that I want. And actually, it's not what I think the best version of masculinity is, or the man that I want to be. So it was a real period of learning, and that really took me into the period of life that I'm in now, in terms of my early 30s, and now at the age of 34. It's just amazing how the view of masculinity can change so much within that period and within that growth. And a lot of it is about maturing and experiences. But for me now, it's changed completely. It's about, I see that masculinity right now as part of it is about active ambition. It's about stretching myself. It's about committing to the things that feel like I'm really strong at, and trying to be the absolute best version of myself. And that's in all aspects of life. So whether job or all sorts of relationships, whether that's a relationship with a partner or a relationship with my friends or a relationship with my family, it's about being the best I can with all of those things. And there are a few key things that I recognize I need to be able to achieve that. I've already touched on the ambition, and I'm not talking about ambition in terms of money. I'm talking about being the best version of myself and stretching myself in all areas. So the things that I know that I'm good at or that excite me, not just saying I'm going to do them, but speaking those things to other people as well, and having them hold me accountable to those things and looking to push forward in those areas. Ambition is definitely a big thing for me in terms of part of my gold standard of masculinity. And focus is a huge thing as well. And a huge part of that focus, or me being able to have that focus, is really around understanding what I want. And I suppose it links nicely into that ambition, but I also understand that to have that focus, I have to be careful in terms of, or considered in terms of, okay, what am I listening to in terms of my podcasts? What am I watching on TV? What am I reading? Who are my friends around me? Who are my colleagues? What family members am I listening most to? Who am I trusting? Because to have that focus, you need to keep your mind really clear. You need to be able to listen to those things that are really good for you, that empower you, that strengthen you, and that focus on those things is a really big part of moving forward. And finally, as important as anything else, it's about being open. I learned through those struggles that I had in my late teens to early 20s that openness is not a weakness. And a big part of why I see the gold standard of masculinity now is having that openness and actually being able to be vulnerable and to communicate when you're struggling and when you're finding those challenges, because I completely understand now that we're all in the same boat. We're all dealing with the same things. We're all on a journey, and we struggle at times, and that's absolutely fine that we do struggle, but we have to be able to be open to be able to be supported, and we have to be open for other people to feel supported as well. So those are definitely the key things for me in terms of the gold standard, the healthy gold standard of masculinity now. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Into the Man Cave. Please do drop us a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the gold standard of masculinity and how your thoughts and views on this have changed over the years. The topics you would like to hear us talk about in future episodes, and any guests or experts that you would like to see. Into the Man Cave is all about shared experiences in a safe space. And we'd love to hear about your own journey. This could be through short video or written blogs. All details can be found at our website, intothemancave.com. Finally, please leave us a 5-star review, like and subscribe. All of our handles can be found in the description below, and all of your support is hugely appreciated. Have a great week, and we'll see you again soon in the Man Cave.